From day one, we are told who we should be, how to live, and what's acceptable. Before we even have a chance to discover ourselves, our society has already drawn those lines for us. But what happens when those lines are keeping us from knowing and embracing who we truly are? Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, a podcast about unpacking and unlearning everything that's kept you from living as your true self. Through honest conversations about your internal emotional landscape, sexuality, coming out later in life, relationships, and the journey to self-acceptance, we break free from the boxes we never chose. So, today on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, I have Stephanie, who is a very dear friend of mine for quite a long time now, since 2010. We've known each other. And Stephanie also is the mother of two girls and also a late bloomer. And she also was my second partner after my catalyst. Yes, we were together for 3 years from 2010 to the beginning of 2014. And we have so much in common and we have so many things to talk about that I thought it would be great to have Steph on and bring you guys into a lot of things that I hear from late bloomers about, relationships, coming out with kids, what kind of partner do you pick when you're coming out later with kids? Do you pick a partner with kids? Do you pick a partner without kids? We want to talk about long distance relationships, of which we have both had many.
So many,
and just a lot of other commonalities along the way. So welcome, Steph. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah.
This is so fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. I mean, we talk all the time. Steph and I are friends. But I thought maybe we would talk a little bit about the early stage for you. I've told my story many times, but maybe how old you were when you came out, because you were a late bloomer as well, and a little bit about your story. How long were you married? How old were your kids? What was happening for you at that time when you came out?
Yeah, so I came out, I believe I was about 33 at the time, and my kids were little. They were 2.5 and 5 at the time, and I had been married to a man for, oh gosh, at that point it was like 11 years, and yeah, it was tricky. I had come out right after my mom had died. And my dad had died when I was in college. So it was a crazy time, just filled with lots of life changes, huge life changes, for the first time feeling like I was completely alone. Also coming into my own in terms of my sexuality and figuring out who exactly I was. And, and I started the whole like dating thing, and it was wild. It was just wild. First, it was, just so exhilarating and like, oh my God, this is what it's supposed to have been like, for all of these years. And I'm just seeing this now and I'm just figuring this all out now. And, but along with that comes this fear of like, okay, well, like now what, it's not just me. I have 2 kids and I have no support system. The relationship that I was in, I was very isolated. And so my support system was pretty minuscule at the time. So, and it felt like I was going through like a second adolescence, like when you go through puberty the first time and you kind of get those, that playbook, like, all right, well, you got to look a certain way and you got to dress a certain way because otherwise you're not going to attract a nice boy and all the things. And you kind of get that roadmap, from the time that you're, 12, 13 years old. And, here you are at 33. And now all of a sudden it's like, you have to go back to that point and kind of like relearn everything, but there's no map. There is no like, well, how do we do this? You're not in school anymore. So it's not like you're sitting next to somebody and you're like, ooh, they're kind of cute. And like, let me pass them a note. Like, no, they're like, it's none of that. Like you're an adult and you're dating for the first time. And I mean, there's so much. I mean, we could talk for like hours about this because there's just so many components to it.
Yeah.
So like,
and what year was this for you? I'm sorry. I know. You're not good with the years. But I'm going to say, I mean, we met in 2010 and you had a few relationships with people that I think you met online. Yeah. So I just want to say we were the early online people. We were
Tango Wire.
We met on Tango Wire. That's right.
We were the OG, like online.
We were the OG. People. Yes. Very early. There was Tango Wire, and I feel like there might have been one other, but I mean,
Match even existed then.
I don't think Match existed yet. That's right. And it was hard to find a place where you could look for women.
You were in New York City. I'm at the Jersey Shore, and I've been here since 1998, like that date I remember. But, I mean, you look around my town, you look around where I work, there's still people flying Confederate flags. You know what I mean? So it's not the easiest thing to find
local people.
Never mind feel comfortable enough that you're not going to get your ass beat by going up to somebody saying, hey, so the apps were the way to go. And, yeah, Tango Wire. Oh my God. Yes.
So funny. There was another one and I can't remember the name of it now, but yes, we met on Tango Wire, which is no longer a thing, people.
It doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist anymore. But
somebody
yeah,
bought it out.
We met there and we had a lot in common. We both have childhood sexual abuse histories. Mm-hmm. So we had that in common. And even though I'm 5 years older than you, we both came out at the same age of ourselves. I was also 32, 33 when I came out. You were 33.
We both like kids were the same.
My kids were the same age. My daughter was 2.5. My boys were 5. 5.5.
Yep.
So we had a lot of the same situation. I don't know if you remember this. A lot of people used to think that we were sisters. Which was so common. I think it's because we both have this curly hair. So we'd show up for yoga and they'd be like, oh, did you bring your sister to yoga? And I was like, oh, I hope not. I hope she's
much alike.
Yeah. It was really funny, like really, really funny. But you met me at a time where I had just gotten out of 8 years of the relationship with my catalyst.
Yeah.
And I was, we had been broken up already for 2 years, but we had tried 3 more times in those 2 years to make it work. We broke up in 2008. And then between 2008 and 2010, we tried to make it work. Also, interestingly, at the same time that was happening, my mother was ill with Alzheimer's. And Steph was actually you were the last partner of mine that ever met my mom. You met her the week before she died.
Yeah.
So there was that. And
I remember going to your parents' house with you.
Yeah.
And your mom was, she was not quite coherent. And
it was the last time she was ever sitting up. I mean, she was in the wheelchair, but that was her last time. Then after that, she started to go. So you were there with me. So we met in 2010. We met, I want to say, was it July of 2010?
When we met? August 7th.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you remember the date. See, look at that.
It's like numbers, I'm okay.
Yeah, so you really, because she died September 10th.
Yeah.
So you met her just a few weeks after you and I met.
Yep.
Which is wild to think back. So because also at that point in time, after having been through this relationship with my catalyst, I was really not very trusting because my catalyst ended up, she had an emotional affair, which she lied about. And it was a very dramatic ending to our relationship, which we then tried to go back to 3 times over the next 2 years. But I really was not very open, even though I was looking and I was like ready to like start dating, but I also was pretty difficult at that time, I think. And
well, I remember when your mom had died, and I had said to you, I was like, I'll go to the funeral with you, and you're like, no, and I was like, wait, huh? Because I remember, like, I just like, and something that like we've talked about a lot is like the fact that I'm like such an empath, and I remembered that feeling of, burying my parents and how emotional that was for me. And I was like, I know I've only known you for a month, but I want to be there for you. And like, you're like, no.
Exactly. I was very boundaried. Yeah. I was like, no. Yeah. And it took a while. I mean, I really feel like it took at least a year to kind of start to soften me a little bit. But I've always really appreciated you as my second partner because you did soften me. And I think that's because you're such a wonderful human that, just such a good person and such a kind person and a gentle person. And I feel lucky that you were my second partner after what I experienced. It did soften me as much as I could be softened at that time with where I was. This was my first long distance relationship. It wasn't intentionally long distance. It wasn't something I ever thought about. It was just, there's not that many people out there that I'm interested in. And wow, this person looks like somebody I'd be interested in. And you were long distance. So we had to kind of navigate that and figure that out.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was, we made it work, but I think we also had our challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, it was definitely tricky. Because you worked in the city, and, your kids were in the city. I worked at the shore and my kids were here, and it was, and our parenting schedules didn't align. At first.
Right. Because we had a different parenting schedule.
Yeah. I mean, but at that time I had my kids all during the week and my ex had them on the weekends. So I would come up on the weekends and we would spend that time together. And then I would go, it was like, okay, take you out of this box, and like during the week you're a parent and you do all of these things with your kids, and you get them to school and you feed them their lunches and you get them to their soccer practices and all that sort of stuff. And then it was like, okay, weekend.
Right. Now I get to live my lesbian life.
And, but obviously still being in contact with my kids and, trying to navigate that whole thing. And, and then kind of like dealing with what your ex is saying about, what your mom is now doing, and kind of navigating that. Like, it's a lot.
And we both had that.
And I always just thought to myself, I love my kids more than I hate him. And so they deserve to have a good relationship with him. And so any opinions that I had about him, any feelings that I had, any stories I had to tell about him, I kept them to myself because I loved them more than I hated him. And so I had decided at that point, I'm just like, like my circle is really small and I can't share a lot. I don't have a lot of people to share this with. And, so you were somebody that I shared that stuff with.
Yeah. And vice versa.
You were somebody who I knew understood because our backgrounds are so similar. And, and we were able to kind of like talk each other off ledges and, commiserate and be like, that fucker, and whatever it was, and not have it affect our kids. And I thought that was something that I really appreciated,
I agree.
at that time, because it's just really hard. It's really hard to navigate this, and to have somebody who is doing the exact same work and is going through the exact same process is,
Yeah.
I found it to be completely invaluable,
Yeah. And it's interesting because in between, in those 2 years where I kept trying to get back with Lisa, before we met, I had dated this other woman who is now also a friend. But I dated her for 8 weeks or something. And she was a woman who had never been married and didn't have any kids and had been out since her 20s or something. And she had said to me, I think it was while we were dating, she had said to me, I think you should try dating somebody that has kids. I was like, that's interesting. Because Lisa didn't have kids. And she was great with my kids, but at the end, it was about having kids and her not being sure she wanted to have kids. That was sort of part of our ending.
Yeah.
And so this person said, I think you should date. And it wasn't, obviously I don't even know that I knew you had kids. I don't remember if I knew or not when we first connected on.
I think it was in my profile.
You had it. Maybe it was in your profile. Yeah. But this was sort of like, okay, like the person with no kids didn't work. I'm going to try a person that has kids in some way, not consciously, not like, oh, that person has kids, I'm going to pick them.
Right.
But it was like, let's see, maybe this is better. And I think for these reasons, it was, because I think we both really could commiserate and really understand each other.
Yeah.
And then I think also it was hard because I think we were in different places where, I think we were both very overwhelmed, but I think for me, it was like when my kids did go to him on the weekend, I just needed quiet, like adult time. I couldn't do more kids. Like I couldn't do a weekend with your kids when I didn't have my kids.
Right.
And so that became something we had to navigate. And that was, it was difficult. We navigated it, but it was difficult. It created some tension between us.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. But then my parenting schedule had changed when I started working in the city.
Yes.
And then our parenting schedule aligned.
Yes.
And so I think that kind of helped a little bit.
Yeah, it helped.
In terms of our relationship. You go through so many things when you're, well, first off, these were kind of like the beginnings of our, of our coming out stories, fairly close to the beginning. And, there's so many things that you're trying to navigate at the same time. And then, you get to the place where you're like, oh, wow, I found this person. They're very like, they're funny on the phone. They're like, they're like sexy. They're like all of these, they're checking all the boxes. And then then you start to like, you start to have this question in your mind. All right, when's the right time to like introduce this person to my kids? Do I want to introduce this person to my kids? Do I want my kids to be involved in this? How long do I go before I, try like kind of bring this all together, and both of us had that. We were both having that. I know a lot of the times when I was up with you, like your kids were there. I remember going out and playing basketball with your kids and, we went out to Fire Island and, I was going fishing and like, all of those things. And then just that integration, like, is it a matter of like, who's here when, or is it like a conscious decision? Like, how do I do this? Because like you said, the relationships before, you had, your catalyst had moved in with you. I had just like done some dating. So there wasn't a lot of like intermingling, so now not only am I redefining myself, but now I'm trying to figure out what I want my life to be and what kind of structure like that. We were talking about that analogy before about, the rescue dogs when they first open up that cage and they take a look around, and it's like, do I do this? Do I take that first step, coming into your sexuality? And then you're out in that grassy pasture looking up at the sky for the first time, and you're running around full of like, just full of joy and full of like so much happiness, and then freedom for the first time in your life. And then all of a sudden, like those rescue dogs, like after they've run around for a little bit and all of that excitement has kind of like, subsided a bit, they kind of look around like, okay, now what? Now that structure is gone, and when you're getting into a relationship, coming out of a marriage, and you're getting into a new relationship and you're bringing kids into this, it's heavy. It is heavy. You're not just dealing with your feelings anymore. You're not just dealing with what you want anymore. You have little people that you need to protect. You have little people's feelings who are also dealing with a breakup of your marriage, and who are also dealing with, well, mommy doesn't like daddy anymore. Mommy now likes girls, and I mean, at that age, it wasn't like a huge transition at all, because like they were totally fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of them not being with daddy anymore and being with somebody else, the whole step parent kind of thing enters the room. And so, it's just heavy. It's just heavy. And I think you and I don't know about, I feel pretty certain in that, like, we kind of lived for those moments, those weekends where it was just like, okay, you could just breathe. Like freedom.
Yeah.
We would like laugh and we would have fun and we would go out. We go to concerts and like, eat like vegan pizza at like 2:00 in the morning, whatever. And, and it's just such a balancing act, trying to figure out what is best for my kids, what is best for me, and how do I navigate a completely new style of relationship. And now there's other kids involved too. So there's like a step parenting, but not necessarily kind of component to it. Like you're another adult in these kids' lives. And there's just so many things going on.
Yeah.
So many factors all at the same time.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to navigate.
Yeah.
It's really a lot. And I mean, I remember, and, so all that was happening for us. And then also at the same time, I was in graduate school and getting my master's. I mean, I look back sometimes and I'm like, how did any of this even happen and work? And it's funny because today I have a lot less bandwidth, I'm going to say. Like I don't have a lot of bandwidth for things, but I look back and I had endless bandwidth.
We had estrogen back then.
Yeah. Oh, right.
See, I give a fuck.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel like as that declines, we give that much less of a shit.
Yeah.
I feel like we are able to now like filter out, all of the things that just either are too much or that just don't work.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, like we don't really.
Yeah. But back then, we did not know we would be arriving to that now. You know what I mean? Like everything mattered so much. And also there was space and time for all of it.
A lot of energy back then.
Yeah, to like talk it out and to figure it out. And so anyway, I think we had something very special while we were together. And we did end up coming to a place eventually about 3 years later, after I think it was 3 years. Yeah. Where, I think it was like and again, this goes back to some of the boxes, right? Because like the boxes I had back then, I don't really have those same boxes now. And I think you also had some boxes that I don't think you have now. So I know on my side, when we ended in a very, I feel like we ended in a very mature way.
Yeah.
Even though we then didn't have communication for quite some time.
Right.
So I'd say we went, a good 6 years or something like that, 6 or 7 years.
I think it was too painful.
It was too painful.
It was way too painful because I know for me, I felt so like just so close to you,
It's
and
like a best friend.
Yeah. Because, like we said, we went through stuff together. It wasn't just building a relationship, but we were going through these horrible divorced scenarios
with difficult ex-husbands.
Yeah. With kids who were, struggling.
Yeah.
Struggling. And, it was like, it wasn't just losing a partner. It was losing a friendship. And at that time, a best friend and like, like that connection to something, that connection to like, I don't know. It was just it's such a strong connection.
Yeah.
And I know, like, for me, that feeling of that aloneness that I felt when, after my mom had died, and that aloneness, like, took me to some crap places, in terms of like dating, just like constantly trying to like fill this void that I could not fill. I mean, it took me a really long time. I mean, it's been within the past, like, I would say probably 5 years that I have actually gotten myself to a point where I've realized that I never needed somebody else to fill that. But that, I mean, that connection was so important, like, I mean, I was alone, and I just like, I was starved for
connection.
And so when our relationship ended, it was devastating, even though it was mutual. And like,
it was mutual. And I wanted to just say, like, the boxes, because I know, like, we all come in, because of society and how we're raised, we all come in with these boxes. And, I remember coming into the end of the relationship with the things that I wanted, which were to somehow have more time together, or know that there'd be like a point at which we'd have more time together. But I also wasn't willing to move to where you were. You then got a job that was going to keep you there. That was like a good job to hold on to, that was going to keep you there. And I remember feeling like every other weekend is not enough. Like, I remember like that being like a big thing for me, which, by the way, today I'd be so happy with every other weekend. Like, that would be more than enough. Right. So, but this is like many years later, but like, that would be great. Like, nothing wrong with every other weekend, but that didn't feel like enough coming from a marriage.
Yep.
Living with, a partner, a spouse, and then having a live-in partner.
Yeah.
It was this long distance, and this like, I'm only going to see you every other weekend.
Yeah.
Did not work for me.
Right.
And I think also, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I think also for you, it was like, I want somebody who's going to move in with me. I want the full package. I want the full, I want the full family, and to have all the kids together and get the big car, and kind of like a Brady Bunch situation kind of thing. Right. And I didn't want that.
Right.
I wanted more time, but I didn't want the Brady Bunch situation. So we came to this place where we had a very mature conversation about it, which is like a very, lesbian kind of thing. Not everybody can do that.
Our marriage is ending. Yeah,
exactly. And then we had many, many years where we had no contact, during which time I entered into another relationship. like later in 2014, I entered into another relationship, which lasted about another 4 years. You entered into another relationship and you
Jumped right in.
and you got married within like a year or something, a year and a half or a year of us breaking up. It might've been a year. I mean, we broke up in February. You might've been getting married in like December.
No, it wasn't that soon.
Okay.
That soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was like the following December. No.
2014.
No, it wasn't 2014.
It wasn't.
No, it was later than that. Maybe 15?
I mean, it wasn't after 15.
It wasn't, no.
It wasn't after 15, but I felt like it was 14 or 15. You ended up getting married and getting into a pretty difficult situation that landed you in getting divorced.
Yeah. I was really struggling, just trying to, just like I said, navigate without a map, and feeling like I had no support, no support system, no clue as to what to do, and I felt as though my family of origin was gone. I have two brothers, but they both moved away. And so here I am, like, I'm here, I've got two babies, and I'm that caged dog trying to find that security of that cage again, and so I kept putting myself back in the cage, and
a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
This time it was with a woman. So I was feeling like, okay, I'm authentically myself now, but no, I wasn't. No, I was putting myself back in the box, trying to in my mind fix it, and make myself feel better and make myself like be okay and to regulate myself. And
that's not what you got.
Mistakes were made.
Yes, that was not what you got. Yeah. And the really nice thing was we had no contact from 2014, the beginning of 2014 until I would say sometime around like 2018. I remember it was a summer in Fire Island and I was walking on the beach and we connected on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were, I don't remember exactly what was happening, if you're already out of the marriage or whatnot.
It had ended, yeah.
Yeah, but I remember you saying to me, do you remember?
No.
I get it.
Oh, I get it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, I get it. Because when you and I were together, like you had said, you had a bunch of walls up. You were very
guarded.
And so, I was just in that like chasing dynamic. So when I got into the relationship with my next partner, it was like she was chasing me and she was the one like doing, and she was the one giving me all of this attention and giving me all of this love and this affection and all of this sort of stuff. And I mean, as that relationship progressed, I started to see the that whole U-Haul kind of scenario kind of come into play, where it was like, I mean, she would say like, can I stay over at your house? And I'm like, no, not yet. My kids are here right now. No. And every time I would see her, can I stay over at your house? I'm like, no, my kids are here. And I had gotten to a point where she had kind of like worn me down, and it was like, it's snowing out. Can I just stay here for the night? And I'm like, okay. All right. But, need to be out before like my kids wake up, whatever, blah, 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 and all the things. And so that's one of the areas where I've grown as a human. Now I could say, no means no, like set the boundary and like, stop. But at that point it was like, so this human is giving me all of this affection and giving me all this stuff. But, but it came at a price. It came at a really steep price. And that price was like what you and I were kind of talking about, was that all of that affection and all of that love and all of that thisness,
Wanting. Yeah.
all that wanting, it was insatiable and it never stopped. So it became, if I went out with friends, that turned into jealousy. Where were you? What were you doing? You know, like at that point, I couldn't talk to you on the phone.
No.
I couldn't be friends with you
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, she would get pissed. You know, she would get angry. She would get in my face. And I'm like, whoa, like what's going on right now? I've never in my life been in like a physical relationship, you know, where somebody was like physically coming at me. And like, it was the kind of thing where, if she wanted to fight, she wanted to fight. And no matter what time it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I would say to her, I don't want to fight with you right now. Okay. Like it's too heated. I will talk with you about it. Let's just sleep on it and we'll talk about it and wake up with a flashlight in my face. Like
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
1:00 in the morning, flashlight in my face, like waking me up, like
crazy.
Like,
oh, so traumatizing.
To have this fight, you know? Yeah, definitely different from, you know, our relationship where we rubbed each other's feet and like talked a lot, you know, and, you know, talked about things, but I was floundering. I floundered for a long time, you know, but you know what? Like I've also at this point in my life, I've given myself a pass and I've realized that, you know what? I'm not perfect and I've struggled in the past. I've realized the mistakes that I've made and I know I have a better sense of what I want now. And I was in a tough situation and I had to make really hard decisions and I felt alone and, you know, and all the things. And, you know, do I wish I would have done things better? Of course. But I think at the heart of it always was, you know, what is best for my kids and what is best for me in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we've both had many interesting experiences since that even, and you've been partnered now for quite some time. Is it 4 years, 5 years?
6.5.
6.5. Oh my God. Wow. And you've been in a long distance relationship for 6.5 years.
6.5. Yeah.
Yeah. And I went on the relationship I had after you and I broke up while you were in this marriage. I had a long distance relationship also. Mm-hmm. Then I had another long distance relationship after that for another 3 years, which was during COVID. Yeah. And then I had another long distance after that relationship for a year. My dad got sick at the end of 2023 and then he was dying and I just needed to not be in a relationship. It was just way too much for me. This person that I was with also was going through her own divorce from a woman, but still all the stuff was triggering me and I needed like quiet. And so I've actually been single since then. Mm-hmm. And I've been rethinking the whole long distance piece after that relationship. I think it's interesting just to talk about what are the benefits of long distance, because I think that a lot of women find women these days online or through social media, and they start relationships really from two different states. It could be across the country. Sometimes it's different countries and they're flying to Europe to see each other. And so, you know, and there's something really fun and exciting about that in a lot of ways, especially when you really connect to somebody and you haven't connected to somebody, or you have a hard time finding somebody you'd like to connect with. And then you find this person and you're like, oh my gosh. So there's a lot of really fun and good parts of long distance as well. But I also think that there are some downsides to it. At least for me, like I found, and I'm going to speak to those, which I think, you know, again, the good things are sort of like the relationship remains kind of vacation-like in that you're not doing everyday life together.
Right.
You might be doing a few days on the weekend or a few days on if you take a few extra days off of work or whatnot, but you're not in the day-to-day of everyday life. When you're together, there's a little bit of pressure around the time you're having, you have to be connecting in that time.
Yeah.
You have to be sexual in that time. You have to be, doing special things together. You have to have the difficult conversations that you might want to have in person. So all of a sudden, this really fun weekend becomes pressurized.
Right.
And I think that for me, that became very difficult when it was just 1 weekend a month or 2 weekends a month. In the last relationship I had, it got down to that. And that felt difficult. The pressure felt difficult.
Yeah, because I think, the idea of seeing each other on the weekends, it's like, yeah, it's super fun. It's super exciting. You look forward to that weekend during the entire week, and then you get this weekend together and, you're super connected with this person and, all of those things. But there's also a safety. There's a safety in having a long distance relationship when part of you is guarded. And I mean, I know for me, there was part of me that was very guarded. I know for you, part of you was very guarded. So there's a safety in that. There was the kind of like dipping your toe in the water without having to
jumping all the way in.
Jump in.
Yeah.
Because it was always there's always the, well, it didn't work out because, it's too far. There's always that.
It's an easy out kind
it's
of.
an easy escape route, right? And so I think when we get into these long distance relationships, it's like there is a part of us that isn't quite ready for whatever that next thing is.
Yeah.
And I think after it's gone on for a couple of years, and you start to feel that pressure on those weekends, it's becoming that real thing that you were afraid to completely jump into. It's transforming. It's because, you're getting to that point where like it's getting real, and it's getting deep. And there are things that come up that need to be addressed. And there are things that you need to work through. And if you're, like both of us we're both kind of coming at it from a guarded place because of all of our history and because of all of that stuff. You get into that place and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second. This is getting like really real and it's getting really connective and I'm feeling a lot. I'm feeling a pull towards wanting more of this. And now it's getting scary. Are there people around here? Could I have set my radius at like 20 miles? 100%. But something in me made me set it for 100 miles away. There was a part of me that needed that little safety net because I wasn't ready. I had been in a relationship from the time I was 15 years old. That's a whole other podcast, but I was in a relationship from the time I was 15 years old till the time I was 33. And I felt stifled. I felt caged. And, so every ounce of my being, I wasn't aware of it. Like, not until like probably, I don't know, 10 minutes ago, I wasn't aware of it that, my every defense in my body was basically saying, don't do that again. Don't do that again. Like protect yourself. And so I have.
Yeah.
I have,
And so you're in a long distance relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it seems to work. I mean, you've been in it for 6.5 years.
Yeah.
So
6.5 years.
And you're getting your PhD and you're almost done with that. So you've been very busy during that time, which is amazing. You also got your master's first. I mean, so you've been very busy.
I'm very good at keeping myself busy.
Yeah. But doing things that are really like, difficult and fulfilling and things that kind of give you a good feeling about yourself. And this hole that you were talking about, to me, it feels like filling your own hole.
Filling the own.
Not in a sexual way, but sure, that too. Why not? I mean, I've been single for almost a year and a half.
The mentality of a 15-year-old boy. Don't forget. Yeah, no, 100%, 100%, because that was something that I had recognized in myself, that I was trying to, like I said, to fill that hole with people. And yeah, and I had just gotten to a point in my life where I was just like, this isn't the right thing to do. It's not the right thing to do. So what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I, when I die, how are people going to remember me? Like, what are my kids going to think about me? If they were to tell their friends about me, what would they say? And so, yeah, I threw myself into schooling.
Academia,
I wanted to make myself better. I wanted to make myself more marketable for whatever was going to come next.
yeah. I love that for you. I'm so proud of you. It's so badass.
Thank you. Because, like I'm 51 now, and I've been teaching since 1997, so for a really long time. And I feel like I'm just picking up steam, I'm figuring
You're
out.
just starting. You're just
I'm
starting.
just getting started.
Yes.
And like,
I love that.
What am I going to do next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What kind of mark am I going to leave on the world? Like, I'm putting so much pressure on myself to figure out, like, what I want to do next.
You're doing it. You're also doing it. Like you're moving forward.
Yeah, moving forward. And I'm filling those, like, those cracks that were left in my heart, from so long ago. And I'm just trying to, like, be that adult for that inner kid in me that you and I had talked about for ad nauseum, when you and I were together, just, healing that kid in me that needed the adult. Now I'm the adult and I can.
Many conversations of that.
Many conversations. Yes. And I have to say, like, I so appreciate you. I appreciated you as a partner. I appreciate you as a friend. Because I just, like I said, like, navigating all of this alone is terrifying.
Yeah, but it's really hard.
When you have you have that person in your life that you're kind of going through it all with. It is just, it's a game changer.
And I want to bring that out just also. Thank you. And I'm honored that I was part of your journey. And also for people who are listening, I hear a lot of women who come out later really struggling to understand, first of all, the friendship that somebody that they might be dating has with an ex.
Yeah.
And, I just want to say, when you go through all of this with somebody, you really form a deep bond.
Yeah.
And just because the relationship didn't work out in a romantic capacity does not mean that connection and friendship can't still exist.
Yeah.
And I do think, I really do believe that there most of the time needs to be that separation of a couple of years, usually, for something more healthy, like a healthy friendship to kind of come.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's possible. And I know it makes a lot of late blooming women very uncomfortable. I hear about this a lot. They're very uncomfortable with that friendship that their girlfriend has with all of their exes. Why are they still friends? Like, why do they need to keep talking?
Yeah.
And I just want to say, there's something about this chosen family piece and having these people in your life that, when you do come out, you also lose some people along the way, and you lose connecting to heteronormative, structures and communities in the way that you did. And you build these chosen families where a lot of the time your exes become part of that,
Yeah, 100%. You go from, having this vastly deep connection, like soulful kind of connection with another human. And, you know, and at that point in our lives too, all of our kids were in school. They were busy. We were running
Activities. Yeah.
all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So even the ability to form community is diminished significantly. So you become each other's community, not out of trying to isolate or anything like that. I think we did our best to get out and do things with other people and things like that. But our circles were small at that point.
Yes.
So we were each other's like circle.
Yep.
You know, and those circles were pretty, they were just tight. So when the relationship doesn't work out, it's like going
you're
back
losing
to
your
square one.
Yeah, it's like you're losing your community.
You feel like you're losing everything.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
But I hope that for people who are listening in, that helps you understand a little bit about your future or current partners that do have a connection with an ex, and that, you know, there's a reason for it, you know, and
I think it's like kind of like any other friendship that you have, you know. I'm friends with pretty much everybody that I work with, and they're all straight women, you know, and there's nothing sexual, there's nothing physical, there's nothing you know, there's nothing that would be considered straying from a relationship. And I think with lesbian relationships, when you break up, like, especially after you've given it that cool down period where you're not jonesing for physical contact with this person anymore, and you kind of get yourself over that portion of it, and you can really just kind of dive into the friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it would be doing your partner a disservice to try to keep them from that.
I
Because
agree.
it's a huge part. It's a huge part of your life. It was a huge part of my coming out story. It was that whole journey. And just to have somebody who you can walk down memory lane with and be like, oh my
and
God,
who knows you and knows your past.
Yeah, and somebody who remembers it, because I don't.
Yes, I'm good for that.
Yes, for people who don't know, you have a memory like a fucking elephant.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is say, do you remember that thing that happened? And you'd be like, yes, it was August 14th of 2000. Yeah. So I think it's super important to be able to maintain those relationships and those friendships. And I think if you're at the point where you're worried that your partner has
something more going on,
then I think that says a lot about like your communication with your partner.
Yeah.
You know, like if like my partner now, I can tell her, you know, I told her, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be on Sam's podcast. And she's like, oh, cool. You know, and the fact that she knows that, and she knows that I speak with you, and that she is not threatened in any way, you know, like that for me makes me trust her even more.
Yeah.
You know, because I know that she has that faith in me. You know, so it's a reciprocal thing. So I know that I would never do anything to hurt her in that way.
Yeah.
Because I know that she trusts me.
Right.
And I think that that's a deep level of connection that she and I have, you know, that, yeah, I'm able to be friends with my exes and talk with my exes, and like she knows.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
but
I think it's true. I get a lot of messages on TikTok from women that are like, you know, my girlfriend is suddenly going out to dinner with her ex-girlfriend and they haven't seen each other for X amount of time. and I don't know what to do. Like this, I'm scared basically.
Yeah.
Like why is she going out to dinner with her ex all of a sudden?
Right.
And, and of course I don't have an answer to that. I need to hear more about everything. Yeah. But I do think that there is a way to communicate where you get to understand. And, if she didn't give you a lot of information, where you get to ask questions in a non-accusatory way and not in an attacking way, but just in a curious way to try to open up what is going on, and if it feels like there's something happening that's not being honest, like then you can let her know that. Like there's a way to communicate about all of this. It's not just like, I'm not okay with any of the people I'm with being friends with their exes, which I hear a lot. I've actually heard that or seen that on my TikTok account where I've posted about this, and some women say, I am not okay with any partner of mine being friends with their exes. That's not okay.
Yeah.
And that just feels really extreme to me. So I just encourage people who are listening to, if you have a hard time communicating about this, message me, we could talk about it. But this is something that can be communicated about. And for late bloomers, I think it's really important to be able to maintain your community. If you did have a healthy, good connection with somebody, there's nothing wrong with it. Right. Continuing on, this is a friend. This is somebody who's known you for an important period of your life.
Yeah.
So,
I think if you're able to have those discussions with your partner, I think it really says a lot about your relationship. Like
exactly.
You trust your partner enough to be able to tell them anything.
Yeah.
And it's also a time to kind of check in with yourself. If you are the person who is, wanting to reach out to an ex, or wanting to have that connection still, it's really a good time to do a little bit of self-reflection and like, why do I want to, communicate with this person?
Yeah. What is this about for me?
What is it about for me? What am I getting out of this? Yeah. Like what does, at the end of the day, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And, and if you can, and if you can like say to yourself, like, this is somebody who is important to me. This is somebody who knows me, who we went through some shit together, and we held each other's hands like during some really difficult times. And, and I want this person in my life, like, okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But, if you're like secretly like, thinking
pining for something more,
then you need to be honest with yourself.
First with yourself.
First with yourself. Like you need to be able to like really be honest with yourself and really identify exactly what it is you're feeling, and then from there, like you need to be honest. And if you're feeling like, I really want to rekindle something with this person, be honest about it.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Like really,
honesty is the way.
Yeah. Like identify it and then give them the opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be like, what is it that you feel like you need? What do you feel like you're missing or whatever that is, but give them the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a perfect world, that's what would happen. And I know for a lot of people that are very escalated and have a very dysregulated nervous system, that's not always so possible. But in the best case scenario, yes, please, communicate. Yeah. This is the way to go. So, so thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And thanks for being here, being present, and for being such a good friend. And and I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation. Thanks so much, Steph.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for spending this time with me on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more folks find these conversations. If you're ready to unbox from something that's keeping you stuck, I would love to support you. You can find the application to the show at unboxyoursexuality.com. Let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lesbian Curiosity Coach. Give me a follow and join the conversation. Remember, we only have this one time through. Why not unbox yourself and let your true self shine in all its beautiful glory?